Fleet repair professionals have important and demanding responsibilities requiring technical skills, experience, and a lot of hard work. Without you, the fleet doesn't roll. Your working environment can be an efficient, safe, and healthful place to work if you observe a few simple, basic rules. You already have the knowledge, but quite often you forget to think about safety or the hazards that can be found in the shop areas. Safety isn't something you do because it's a requirement. Safety is part of your job. Because you are professionals, we're not going to make a long, drawn-out presentation on every hazard or potential hazard in the shop. We would like to review some safety tips to help reduce the majority of accidents in a fleet maintenance facility. We can't cover everything, but let's call it a review. Of course, always follow your organization's policies and procedures and equipment manufacturer's recommendations. Let's begin with some basics. Wear protective clothing and footwear. Athletic footwear doesn't afford any foot protection from scrapes, minor cuts, or grease, oil, or solvents. We also know many of you wear rings and other jewelry, but rings and jewelry can get caught in moving machinery, impact tools, or other everyday items, so we recommend no rings or jewelry at work. Keep your work area clean, neat, and organized. A shop such as shown here indicates a lack of pride and professionalism. The crew working here probably puts out sloppy mechanical work also. If you have an accident or injury, no matter how slight, report it to your supervisor. Report accidents when they occur, not several hours or days later. Your organization provides personal protective equipment. It's your responsibility to wear it when required. Eye injuries can be prevented by wearing proper eye protection. When working under the hood of a vehicle, you're exposed to gasoline splashes, fan belt shreds, or cooling fans blowing debris when the motor's running, and of course, battery acid splashes. When working under the vehicle, dirt, grease, and oil can lodge in your eye. Grinding requires safety glasses and face shields. Welding requires maximum eye protection. Sanding or metal finishing requires eye protection. Impact tool use also requires eye protection. There are many reasons for wearing eye protection in a fleet repair facility. How about protection from health hazards? Chemicals, spray paint, and asbestos. The protection is called respirators. One of the frequent hazards in a fleet shop is using carburetor cleaners, spray paint, and other aerosols. Read the container label and follow the directions, but don't use a dust mask, as shown here, for chemical vapors. A dust mask protects you from dust, not chemical fumes and vapors. First, you determine the hazard, then wear the proper respirator that protects you from that specific hazard. How about asbestos brake and clutch linings? Some vehicles now use non-asbestos brake linings, but how do you know which one do or don't until you pull the drums? The best advice is to use respirators approved for asbestos on all brake and clutch repair jobs. Because asbestos is such a hazardous material, follow your organization's policy on cleaning, using, storing, and disposing of asbestos materials. Absolutely, positively never use compressed air to clean anything, especially asbestos dust. Using spray cleaners is also a health hazard, as the force of the spray blows asbestos dust into the air. If you use water to clean asbestos brake drums, be sure to dispose of the asbestos waste according to local, state, and federal regulations. While we're discussing chemicals and asbestos, let us remind you that labels provide information on properly using chemicals and what protection you need to reduce health hazards. Additional information is contained in material safety data sheets, which are available for your use. Just ask your supervisor for details. Read and follow the information to protect your health. Next, we come to compressed air, a very useful tool for a variety of tasks. The first rule is don't use compressed air to clean anything. Now, we know the last sentence just sparked a few protests, but you shouldn't use compressed air to clean anything. Aside from the minor dust and other particles created by the airflow, if you happen to get air into your bloodstream, it can cause an embolism. That's a fancy word for it can kill you. Don't joke around with the air hose, and when the air hoses become worn or damaged, repair or replace the air hose. As professionals, you also know to bleed the air compressor daily, or at least weekly, according to your procedures, which drains moisture, oil, and other contaminants from the air. Now, a few words about fire prevention. Leaving oily rags on workbenches or other areas is asking for trouble. Put soiled rags in a metal container that has a metal lid. Smoke only in designated areas, never in the shop area, as there are always fuel vapors, battery fumes, chemicals, and other materials that can ignite or explode. That goes double when welding, cutting, and grinding. Make sure you are well away from flammable or combustible materials. Small electric drills and motors give off thousands of sparks inside the equipment, which can ignite flammables and combustibles. Inspect fire extinguishers frequently and make sure you know how to use them. Check the parts cleaner to make sure the fusible link is in place. In the event of a fire, this fusible link will melt, closing the lid, extinguishing the fire. Okay, let's take a few seconds to review some things you can do to avoid personal injury, specifically back injuries and slips and falls. You can't always bend your legs when lifting, such as installing a battery. You can use your legs for additional support or use your free hand to support your back. Preventing back injuries is really up to you. Keep your back as straight as possible, which allows the discs to act as shock absorbers, preventing pinched nerves. Use care to avoid twisting and stretching when lifting, as your rubber band-like ligaments can tear and cause back injury. There are so many unique lifting requirements in your job, the responsibility for preventing back injuries is really in your hands. Regardless of what you lift or where you lift, there's a safe way of lifting. Slips and falls occur from not watching where you're going. Grease, oil, solvents, spark plugs lying on the floor, tools, hoses. All of these things can contribute to a slip and fall. But if you're watching where you're going and keep your work area clean, you won't experience a slip or fall. Okay, now some nitty-gritty stuff on the tools of your trade. You know machinery, such as cutoff saws, grinders, and air compressors, require machine guarding. Don't use any equipment unless the guards are in place and working properly. Hand tools require special attention. It's hard to get rid of an old friend who's served you so well over the years, but when sockets become worn, replace them. Bent screwdrivers, worn jaws on crescent wrenches, and so on. You know what we're talking about. Don't use broken, damaged, or unserviceable tools or equipment. Impact wrenches and air tools require a note of caution. Use impact wrenches with sockets designed for impact tools. You can't interchange normal sockets with impact sockets. The metal is different for each type of tool. Be sure to use the proper speed air tool for the job you're performing. Too high a speed on an air tool can cause damage to the material you're working on and can cause injuries. One quick word to those who use impact wrenches for tire repair. Never tighten passenger lug nuts with impact tools. Always use a torque wrench set to the specifications for that particular model to tighten lug nuts. Use your tire guide to determine the torque specifications. Naturally, keep all your tools in clean condition and take a close look at your tools. You'll probably find a couple of worn-out sockets or broken tools. Just say no to broken, worn-out, or cracked tools. Now, you've all used cheater bars at one time or another. You already know it's an unsafe practice, so we'll just say don't use cheater bars to increase the torque of any tool. Use the proper tool for the job. Electrical hazards in the fleet shop can be extremely dangerous. Inspect all electrical cords for frays, cuts, or damage. Replace defective electrical cords, as you can't repair electrical cords with tape. There are basically two types of shock protection on electrical tools. The grounded type has a third prong on the plug. The top two prongs are the hot and neutral. The third prong is ground. If this ground prong is broken or damaged, or the ground wire in your electrical receptacle isn't working, you have no shock protection. The second type of shock protection is the double insulated tool. If it's double insulated, it will state double insulation on the tool's label. This type of tool will only have the hot and neutral plug. Sweaty hands, oil, grease, water, solvents, or other liquids may reduce or eliminate shock protection. Don't use electrical equipment near water or liquids. Last but not least is a controversial safety rule, so we're just going to mention it. Follow whatever guidelines are established for your shop, but it's food for thought when purchasing your next set of trouble lights. Please, no screaming or laughing. Trouble lights should be protected to prevent the light from being broken. If you break the light bulb, flammable vapors can be ignited, and, of course, the hazard from the glass. You should not have an additional receptacle in the handle. Again, a shock hazard and spark hazard. You should also not have an on-off switch in the handle. Every time you turn the light on or off, you create a spark. Realizing that very few facilities meet this requirement, we just wanted to mention it, so the next time you're considering purchasing a trouble light, you'll know which kind to buy. The next subject is something everyone abuses. It's called the bench grinder. Don't wear gloves near moving machinery, and this involves bench grinders. Gloves can get caught in the moving wheel, causing a very serious hand injury. Keep the tool rest 1/8 of an inch from the wheel. As the wheel wears down, move the tool rest. If a tool rest is provided on the wire brush, you should also keep it 1/8 of an inch from the brush. When your wheel or brush become worn, they should be replaced. Make sure you're using the proper wheel for the rated RPM of the motor. It's always a good idea to inspect abrasive wheels for soundness before you install them on the grinder. Put a pencil through the hole and tap the wheel gently with a wooden dowel or pencil. If the wheel is sound, a distinct ring can be heard. If it's defective, a dull sound will be heard. Don't take our word for this test, as we can't really explain or demonstrate it adequately. Follow your organization's procedures for inspecting and testing grinding wheels. Do not grind soft metals on abrasive grinding wheels. Soft metal, such as aluminum, will clog the pores of the wheel and can cause the wheel to burst. Don't misuse the grinder, and don't mistake the small protective glass installed on the grinder as eye protection. Safety glasses and a face shield should be worn when working on the grinder. Okay, let's go into a quick review of some common items in the shop. When using hydraulic jacks, always use jack stands if you're going to work under the vehicle. Hydraulic jacks fail quite frequently, therefore jack stands are required. Safety on floor lifts is fairly simple. When working under the lift, be sure the safety latch has secured the lift. Always stand to one side of the vehicle that's being guided into the work area. Never tie down or secure the lift handle when raising or lowering the vehicle on the lift. If you're using shock stands, always use them in pairs. Never use only one shock stand. Have we left anything out? Probably 2,000 other things, but you're professionals. We didn't talk about the hazards of steam cleaning, battery servicing operations, wheel alignment, gasoline, flammables, corrosives, toxics, ladders, bench vices, the list goes on and on. The goal of the program has been to increase your awareness for safety. You know more about your job than anyone. You're professionals. The main thing to remember is you are the only person who has the ability, experience, and attitude to prevent accidents. All the videos, rules, regulations, and procedures won't do it. You're the only one. Thank you.